Today on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Michigan Wolverines, one of the teams that's become a true national power the past couple of seasons. This team was 13-1 in 2022. They won the Big Ten, made it back to the college football playoff, came up short once again in the college football playoff, this time around losing to TCU in the semifinals. But this is a team with tremendous potential looking forward to 2023. Could this be the Wolverines' year coming up here in 2023? Could they finally win a national championship? We'll be talking about it here today. We'll be previewing this team's roster and predicting their schedule game by game in this video. Let's get started with a quick recap of 2022. This team was, once again, 13-1 overall. They were undefeated in the regular season. Their one loss of the season came at the very end, losing to TCU in the semifinals. So a disappointing end to what was an outstanding season for Michigan. This team has really came around the past couple of seasons. I mean, let me remind you, after the 2020 season when this team was a big disappointment, there was talk of firing Jim Harbaugh, getting him out of there. But turns out, this has been a team that is really they've gotten over the hump the past couple of seasons. They've beaten Ohio State 2 straight seasons. That was a big hurdle for them. And now their big hurdle is winning in the college football playoff. They lost 2 straight years in the semifinals. And TCU is a team that was nothing short of outstanding in 2022. But based on how TCU played in the national championship, they still were a vulnerable team. But for Michigan, still, if you look at the start of the season, this team was dominant their first 3 games. And then they opened up conference play with a close win against Maryland. They beat Iowa on the road by a couple of touchdowns, beat Indiana on the road 31-10, dominated Penn State. That was one of the more impressive wins of the season. Beat Michigan State 29-7. This team really was dominant down the stretch. Their one close game down the stretch was against Illinois, who turned out to be a really solid team in 2022. They won that game 19-17, but otherwise this team was very dominant down the stretch. Beat Ohio State 45-23. How about 2 straight seasons beating the Buckeyes? This is huge for Michigan, finally being able to take down Ohio State in Columbus this season, by the way. Then they beat Purdue in the Big Ten Championship, really no problem there, 43-22, and lost to TCU 51-45 in the college football playoff semifinals, a close game. Truly an outstanding matchup that will be remembered for a long time, but Michigan just came up short. But looking forward to 2023 now, your roster preview going into next season. This team has got some outstanding returning production. J.J. McCarthy's coming back. Blake Corum's coming back. Donovan Edwards is coming back. The backfield is going to be one of the best, if not the best in the country. You got Blake Corum, who put up over 1,500 yards of offense last season, 19 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards put up over 1,100 yards, nearly 1,200 yards of offense, and 9 touchdowns last season. That's a combined, that's nearly 2,800 yards of offense combined between the two and 28 touchdowns. Backfield's going to be excellent. The receiving core also looks pretty good. You do lose your top receiver in Ronnie Bell, your top tight end in Luke Schoonmaker, but this team has got some good depth in the receiving core. I'm not too concerned. Cornelius Johnson coming back, Roman Wilson coming back as well. So it's going to be an adjustment not having Ronnie Bell in there, especially considering he put up over 900 yards this past season. But once again, really not too concerned as there's good depth. You lose 2 on the offensive line, 2 defensive linemen, 2 in the secondary. So defensively, this team returns most everyone here. They especially, linebackers, this team is only going to be getting better. They got a couple of transfers coming in, which are going to have immediate impacts, I think. So things are looking good for Michigan going into next season. Defensively, things look good. Everything points to this team potentially being even better in 2023 as far as returning production is concerned. So it's just a matter of whether or not this team can get over their next hump, which is winning in the college football playoff. They've lost 2 straight seasons in the semis, and so can they get past the semifinal round? And we'll see if this team is able to even get back. Michigan is now the team to beat in the Big Ten. You look at Ohio State, the past couple of seasons, they have been under Michigan. Michigan has been the Big Ten champion back-to-back seasons now. This is the team to beat. So can Michigan get back to the college football playoff? And if they get back to the college football playoff, which I think is pretty likely, can this team finish the job and win the title in the end? And I think, once again, all signs point to this team very much being a big contender. So is 2023 finally the Wolverines season? Could this team win it all in 2023? I very much think so. I think this is one of your top 4, top 5 teams that are going to be in contention as we look forward to this upcoming season. So your transfer portal and recruiting, this team has had some movement in the quarterback situation. Jack Tuttle coming in from Indiana. All he's going to be is a backup. Cade McNamara and Alan Bowman are off to different places. Cade McNamara is going to be the starter at Iowa in the quarterback position this upcoming season. At least I would assume so. Andrell Anthony, receivers off to Oklahoma. You also lose A.J. Henning, but both of them really didn't have massive impacts on this team. Eric All, tight end, is off to Iowa. He is a notable name. A.J. Barner is coming in from Indiana, tight end there. Miles Hinton, defensive tackles, coming in from Stanford. You do bring in Drake Nugent as well from Stanford. Ladarius Henderson, offensive lineman, is coming in from Arizona State. You bring in Josiah Stewart, edge rusher from Coastal Carolina. I mean, these are some playmakers here. The offensive line, adding a couple, and Josiah Stewart, expect him to have an impact. Taylor Upshaw's off to Colorado. Welshoff, defensive lineman, is off to Charlotte. You lose George Rooks. You bring in Ernest Hausman from Nebraska. Expect him to potentially have an immediate impact. He was one of the best defensive players for Nebraska this past season. R.J. Moten, safety, is in the transfer portal as well. Recruiting-wise, this team is 17th in the country, 3rd in the Big Ten. They got 11 4-stars and 14 3-stars coming in. And I got this team at a 9 out of 10 on the future forecast meter, saying I'm pretty confident this team has got a bright future. They've already been excellent the past couple of seasons, and they've been outstanding. But looking into the future, I think this team has got many years ahead of success, and I'd be very surprised if this team fell off anytime soon. But that said, let's look at your schedule going into next season. So you got East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green to start off the season, kind of similar to last season, where your first 3 games were all easily winnable games. And so, I mean, this is honestly, I think that's a good way to start off the season, is with games where you can get warmed up and get into the season without having any big challenges, which I understand having a challenge or two in the first couple of weeks, maybe to boost the resume. But I think for Michigan, it's worked out pretty well for them, having an easy September, at least an easy first couple of weeks. And so even though it might not be quite as respected by some fan bases, seeing a team like Michigan not having any tough non-conference games, I mean, it's obviously shown for the Wolverines to work out. But yeah, so you got those 3 non-conference games. Then you got Rutgers to start off the conference schedule, Nebraska on the road, Minnesota on the road, and then you got Indiana at home, and then Michigan State on the road before your bye. And then you got Purdue to start off November at home. Then you got Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. 3 huge matchups back to finish out the regular season. November is a crucial month for Michigan. I mean, you look at that Michigan State game, that's probably the toughest matchup in your first 8 games, and it comes at the very end. This team should cruise to 7-0. I honestly would be very surprised if that wasn't the case. First 4 games, should win each of these games by a couple of touchdowns. I mean, the closest one probably would be Rutgers, and even Rutgers next season, I'm really not expecting too much out of. So 4-0 to start off the season. I'd be stunned if they took a loss in their first 4 games. Nebraska on the road. Now, Nebraska has had some losses in the transfer portal. Matt Rule, first season for him. Things have changed a bit the past couple of weeks with losing some key players. And so Nebraska, not quite as confident on them right now. But I do think, I mean, Nebraska does play Michigan pretty close in Lincoln, we've seen the past few times. So I do want to take Michigan for sure to win that game. But I do think Nebraska maybe keeps it within 13 or 10. Minnesota on the road, not expecting too much out of the Gophers. You win that one pretty easily. Indiana, same thing there. Michigan State on the road. This is an interesting matchup. Michigan State was a disappointment last year. I think they're better in 2023. I mean, it's a road game also in East Lansing, so I do think Michigan State hangs in there, but give me Michigan in the end. So I've got Wolverines starting out the season 8-0. I'm pretty confident this team starts out the season 8-0. Honestly, the floor at this point in the season for the Wolverines heading into November would be 7-1. I mean, if this team is any lower than 7-1, it would be honestly a stunner to me for the Wolverines. And November is a huge month. So Purdue, not expecting them to be very good in 2023. I do think they fall off a bit. But then Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. I see Maryland being pretty good. They're a potential dark horse. Penn State, Drew Aller, really like that team as well. That's going to be a tough road game there in Happy Valley. And then Ohio State to finish out the season. Obviously, a huge game, one of the best rivalries in all of sports. So for November, Purdue, easy win. You take care of them. Penn State on the road. This one I actually went back and forth on. This is the game where I'm actually least confident in picking it. Ohio State, I'm taking Michigan to beat Ohio State again. I think with it being in the Big House this season, you've beaten them the past 2 years. I think you beat Ohio State once again this season. But Penn State on the road, this is a sneaky matchup, one that's going to be tough. I do want to take you to win that one in the end, but a close game. Same thing with Maryland. That's going to be a dangerous game, potential trap game there. Maryland should be a good team in 2023, maybe somewhere between 8 to 9 wins. I think eight or 9 is pretty reasonable for them. And then Ohio State, obviously that's a game where it could easily go either way. I'm going to take Michigan to win all 3 of those close games at the end of the season. And I've got this team at 12-0 in 2023. This team once again proceeds on to win the Big Ten East, and more than likely will be back in the college football playoff. And something I'm going to be adding and introducing in this video is our range, and this is something where we can estimate the ceiling and the floor of each of the teams we'll be previewing this offseason. And for Michigan, I got this team, the ceiling's obviously 12-0. I've got this team predicted to go 12-0, but what is the floor for Michigan this season? I think it's 9-3. I think 9-3, I'd be stunned if this team took 3 losses this upcoming season, but I would say that's the floor. That's the worst possible record this team could be in 2023. 11-1 and 10-2. Those two 11 and 10 wins are in yellow, meaning that it's unlikely, but it is possible. 9-3 is just very unlikely, but that is the floor for this team, and anything 8-4 and below, I'd say, is nearly impossible for Michigan this upcoming season. So that's your range. I do think the floor is 9-3, ceiling 12-0, and I've got this team predicted for 12-0 in the 2023 season. I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.